This is a paid advertisement on behalf of Brazil Potash. What's going on, guys? This is Aaron from Departures Capital, and we're here with Matt Simpson, CEO of Brazil Potash. Pleasure to have you back on, Matt, for some awesome updates. How you doing?
Doing great, Aaron.
So let's talk about the offtake deal. So first off, congrats on the big offtake news. Can you walk us through this latest agreement and what it means for Brazil Potash?
This is a huge milestone for the company because what it means between the most recent announcement with Camilla Solutions and the two prior announcements with Keytrade and Amanji Group, we have now pre-sold all of our initial production for contracts ranging from 10 to 17 years at market prices plus inland freight. So this is huge as far as de-risking the project.
So let's talk, now about financing and as you said, de-risking. So with your major offtakes now secured, how does this strengthen the financing path for Autaz and where do you stand on construction funding today?
A key risk that banks are not willing to take is the comfort that you're going to be able to sell your product to credible third parties. So by having these three offtake agreements in place, and equally important that they're take or pay agreements with durations of 10 to 17 years, means that it's going to cover the period that our debt would likely be applied for construction of the project. So this now means that the banks are very comfortable. There's credible counterparties that are going to buy the product. They know what the pricing mechanism is going to be and the tenor.
All right, so let's talk key milestones heading into 2026. So you recently completed $28 million financing. Can you tell us more about this and what your plans are for this capital infusion?
So we recently did what's called a pipe financing in the United States. And what it did is it brought in more institutional investors into the registry of our company, some very long, patient money, which is important for a development, or in our case, construction ready project. The bulk of the use of proceeds for this is going to be to complete what's called front end engineering design, which is a step beyond a feasibility study. It's moving more towards the engineering that you do when you start construction of a project. And again, this is a important input along with the recently announced offtake agreements for the banks to be able to provide the debt funding for construction. Because the feedback that we received, Aaron, is that there is strong interest, but the banks want to see what the costs are going to be during the construction on a monthly basis. And then once we're in operation, they want to understand what the cash flows look like on a quarterly basis for at least the first 10 years of operation.
So now let's talk about the market strengthening Brazil's fertilizer security. So how do these long-term offtakes position Brazil Potash within Brazil's push for fertilizer self-sufficiency?
So I think, as we mentioned before, Brazil is the world's largest net importer of fertilizer. They import about $25 billion a year, about 85% of their NPK need, out of which more than 95% of their potash is imported, when the second biggest basin in the world potentially is in their backyard being developed by Brazil Potash. So all three offtake agreements are aimed at selling potash into Brazil. It is possible for us to export, and we can be very cost competitive into all of Latin America. But the closer that we keep the product to our operation, the higher the netbacks are. So in our case, for Brazil, this is absolutely critical, given that not only do they import 95% plus their need, but more than half of the world's potash comes from countries that are sanctioned or at war, primarily Russia, Belarus, and Israel. So this is going to ensure that farmers in Brazil have access to this essential nutrient to grow food.
Totally makes sense. So now let's talk catalysts and what the market might be missing. So for new and existing investors, what key catalysts do you see ahead, and what do you think the market doesn't fully appreciate about Brazil Potash right now?
There's going to be a ton of news coming down the pipeline, Aaron. We announced a couple months ago that there is a memorandum of understanding with a company in Brazil called Fictor to build our power line. And we expect to convert that into a binding contract in the coming months. We also have had discussions with groups that are interested to fund and construct our port, our steam plant, provide the trucking service from the plant to the port, and the 20 megawatts of power that's needed during construction that becomes our backup power, using a very similar arrangement to what we have in place with Victor, which is called a boot contract, where they build, own, operate, and then eventually transfer to us. We've also been speaking to Brazil's government about being exempted from import duties and tax, and we believe we'll be able to get that in confirmation in writing very soon. We've had numerous groups also coming to site looking at funding the construction through either equity or debt. So those are all big milestones that we see coming down the pipe in the coming months.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure covering the story. We've seen a lot so far in just the couple months that we've covered you guys. And 2026 is going to be an exciting year. So I look forward to having you back on for more updates. Best of luck.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron.